Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to plant a root ball hedge and share with you some tips and tricks on getting it right. Let's get to it. Now, before we get into the practical part of the video, here's a quick summary of what a root ball plant is and a guide to buying them. Root ball plants are grown in the ground, usually in a field, and are dug up with their soil and roots intact. They are grown in heavy soil, so when they are dug up, the roots hold the soil and retain their structure before being wrapped with a hessian bag and wire to help hold it all together for transport and planting. They are dug up while the plant is dormant, from November to April, and this is when the plants are available to buy. Because of the way they're grown, needing little maintenance in a field, they're a lot cheaper than container grown plants. And without having their roots restricted by a pot, the plants are a lot thicker and bushier, so it's a far more economical option for hedging. For this hedge I've gone for Cherry Laurel, Latin name Prunus Laurocerasus, as it's a hardy evergreen that's ready available. Before buying your root balls, measure the length of your hedge line you want to plant. Depending on the size of your shrub you're buying, will vary the spacing between them. Root ball shrubs are sold by height, so buying bigger shrubs costs more, but you need less, whereas smaller ones are cheaper, but you will need more. Another thing to think about is your hedge layout, whether you'll be planting a single row or double staggered row. Then you'll know how many shrubs you'll need, but if you're ever stuck, just speak to someone at your plant nursery. Most people are happy to help. When buying your root ball shrubs, make sure they don't have a flat base and sag like this one, as that means the soil has collapsed in the bag due to a poor root structure or broken roots. You can do a drop test to make sure that the shrub has a good root structure. It's best to go with a firm ball like this one. Once you have selected your shrubs, it's surprising how many you can fit in your vehicle if you pack them right, as you can stack the root balls on top of each other and lean the foliage back, which allows you to keep their height, and they stack nicely. The area we're going to be planting them in is an extremely overgrown boundary line, so the first thing to do is to clear it. Here's a few before and after pictures. It was hard work, but a real transformation. All the prep work is now done here, so we can start on the planting. If you have poor soil, then it may be worth digging in some organic matter to feed your hedge and help it establish. Before positioning the root balls, it's a good idea to set up a string line, so you plant your hedge in a straight line. By making sure your plants are in a line, your hedge will grow evenly, and when it's time to prune it, it can all be cut back to the same point. A good little trick to tie off one side of the string line is to pull this line really tight, then wrap around once and twice in a nice line, and then bring that line back over, and the tension keeps it in place. Something worth remembering is to make sure there's nothing touching the string line and that it's nice and tight, so you get an accurate line. So with this string line, we've positioned it 1 foot away from the boundary line, quite low to the ground, and what we're going to do is position the back of the root ball to the front of the string line. This will prevent the string line getting in the way when we're digging, and it's nice and low to the ground, so we can get an accurate line close to the soil where we're planting. And as you can see, this boundary line isn't completely straight, so we've had to put in a couple of extra pins just so it's consistently a foot away from the boundary line. This hedge line is about 50 feet or 15 metres long, and we're planting a single row of 125 to 150 centimetre cherry laurels, although these did seem a lot bigger. The root balls are about 1 foot or 30 centimetres wide, and we bought 30 of these laurels, allowing a spacing of 1 foot or 30 centimetres between each laurel. So what you do to position the plant is put your heel against the root ball behind and bring the new root ball right into your toe, touching the string line at the back and making sure that the plant is standing upright. It's a bit tricky here because we have the slope. We've been resting them up and just putting some soil underneath there so it stands upright, so we can get the spacing equal, which is a planting density of about 2 a metre. And how that works is if your metre was to start here, it would finish around there. So you have to start with an extra one, but you catch yourself up, similar when you're doing fencing, because you've already started the new metre with one from the previous metre. So then that would take you to 2 metres, that would take you to 3 metres, and so on and so forth. As you can see here, there is a fence bay which is about 2 metres long, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 plants which fit nicely within that 2 metre area. For these large shrubs, this is as close as you want to plant them, as you want to allow the roots to have enough space. So to plant, take your spade and make a mark at the front and the side of your root ball. Then you can lift your plant out, and there you've got a bit of a shape, so you can see how big of a hole you need to dig. Now, here is a little bit tough, so I'm going to throw the spade in and lift the soil out there. There's a few roots from an ash tree over here, so just have to take those out. Now, put a bit of soil at the back, as that will help you to backfill when you've got the plant in position. So just dig a nice square hole. If you've got a curved spade, that will work better, as obviously these are ball shaped. So a good way to measure your root ball size is to just put your spade against it, and you can see that the soil level needs to come up to about the length of the spade. So here my soil level is about here, so I'm happy with that height. And just get this last bit of loose stuff out, and then just crumble or chop the base just to make sure it hasn't been compacted by your digging, and that helps with rain infiltration and it helps the roots to bed in nicely there. You just want to take your plant and position it in a way that you're happy, where the leaves are facing towards you and it's got a nice good structure there. Gently firm in the ball, not too hard, as these are roots that have just been dug out of a field, so you don't want to damage it too much. And then what I like to do is, when I plant them in, is just untie the top of that hessian bag, just so it allows the new soil to mix with the old. Now, because I left the soil around the back and the sides, it makes it easy to backfill. And then, because we're on a slope here, we're going to have a little bit of excess soil, so I'm just going to leave that on the front, and we will clear that up afterwards. But gently firm the root ball in with your toe. I prefer using the toe than the heel, as that can compact the soil too much which won't allow the water to infiltrate, and it'll be harder for the roots to establish themselves there. So it's a good idea to just gently push it in. Obviously it does depend on the size of your root ball. If you are doing a much larger one, then you may need to use your heel to move the mass of soil, but if you can help it, just use the toe and dress the soil in there. And that is that one done. So then, using that same method, plant the rest of your hedge, remembering to keep your shrubs straight and upright when planting, so you have a consistent line for your hedge. So now they're all in nicely. I'd just recommend coming through and giving them a light prune, taking off any of these branches that are outward facing and just reducing some of the heights, just to help thicken them up at the base and help them establish. So I'm just coming in on the front, taking off some of these branches, because the issue is, if this gets left for another year, the plant's going to waste quite a bit of energy growing outwards, and eventually it's going to take over the pathway. So you want to take all these sort of bits off, so you're encouraging this upward growth and the growth to thicken it up widthways, because what I don't want to happen is for this hedge to become too thick and unmanageable, and I don't want it to grow over this bed here or close to the pathway. So it's just taking off any of these tips at the top. That will help encourage growth at the base and for it to thicken out. And then also any of these, as long term they're just going to grow outwards, so cut back to thicken it up. And by doing it now, the plant's going to establish its roots and put on a lot of growth, and it's not going to waste energy on these sort of branches. Now, although it seems counterproductive to take off growth of something you just planted, it helps it grow evenly, thicken out at the base, rather than wasting energy on branches that in a year or two you'd have to take out anyway, like the ones along here. Now all that's left is to give your hedge a watering in. Even if you've had a wet day or the ground is wet, a light water helps the soil find its place and bed the plants in. After it's being watered is the time to give your hedge a mulch. This will help to retain the moisture, keep the weeds down, and as it gets watered in the future, the mulch will slowly feed your hedge. And there you have it, an instant evergreen hedge. I'm really happy how this turned out. And that's it for this video. Hope you found it educational and entertaining. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Anyone who does so really does help the channel grow, and it's much appreciated. If you're interested in this sort of content, do check out my channel. There's lots of gardening how-to videos on there. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.